If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. You are listening to the Delphi case series. This is episode 53, The Sons of Odin. Is this unscrupulous criminal gang somehow tied to this case, or at least tied to individuals tied to the case? That's what we will be examining today in typical Mindshock fashion, with logic and reason at the forefront. As always, if you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason and awareness be maintained in true crime, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. Make sure you're subscribed. And you can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Alright, so let's get right into it. There's a few issues here. I'm going to drop the mind shocks right off the bat here. So supposedly, Ron Logan's roommate was none other than an individual known as BH. BH's son was allegedly Abby's boyfriend or equivalent. So, BH was allegedly staying with Ron Logan after some fight with his girlfriend. Supposedly, BH is involved with the Sons of Odin and is also a pagan. This was a comment left by French. BH is into runes and symbols of paganism, has a reputation as a bully and a thug, and he was under the scrutiny of law enforcement, lawyered up, threatened law enforcement with a lawsuit for harassment because law enforcement has questioned and surveyed him so much. BH has mocked the murders on his Facebook page. BH is a POS. So, is this true? I mean, these rumors have actually been around for quite some time. BH was actually on many people's radar. Now, another curiosity, I mean, we're just going to be dropping the mind shocks right away here, is that it's not specified here, but supposedly Libby's uncle is blood brothers with Gabe Ellis, also linked to the Sons of Odin. Now, that's quite a bit of overlap. If this is true, how high does the coincidence stack go? I mean, this is really, really weird. Let's go back to the blog of the one and only Robert Lindsay on Beyond Highbrow. Now, if you haven't checked out the Mr. X podcast episode on in the Delphi series, he's broken a lot of information that has since turned out to be true. Let's go to this post from April 15th, 2021. Stunning rumors about the murders and related matters now officially proven. On accuracy, I estimate about 85% of what we said here in past years has been shown to be false over time. One problem was we went down the rabbit hole chasing the wrong guy for a couple of years. Turned out he was just some troll who wanted people to think he committed these murders instead of being the person who actually did them. Yes, a lot of our very early information turned out wrong, but now that we have studied the case much more clearly, our view of the case is getting a lot more accurate as we are able to rule in or out various rumors and hypotheses. Bottom line is our theories are now dramatically more accurate than the 85% error rate we had earlier. You know what's weird though? I mean, how many people out there would admit such a high error rate? Incidentally, we now have a retired homicide detective working as part of our team. He concurred that a high error rate is normal early in the investigation, and he also said that by 4 to 5 years later, you may well get a much clearer picture of the crime. You know, conversely, I mean, I've heard the opposite as well. I've heard law enforcement inform or law enforcement state that the person that they initially suspect usually turned out to be the guy. Now, of course, this is all anecdotal. This is all biased based on the officers and which specific cases they worked on. Because, yes, sometimes your natural inclination, that first person, turns out to be the perp. But other times, no. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know how much we can make from that. Incidentally, this law enforcement detective thinks our police sources are all real sources and thinks we're on the right trail. The only place he differs is where he thinks that the police are wrong. Thing is, over time, your info tends to get better. You learn which rumors have promise and which have not panned out. Also, you develop better sources. We now have search party members who saw the crime scene, official case documents, the testimony of Lee Kerr, a man who claims to have seen official case documents, accurate crime scene photos, and the best law enforcement sources we have ever had. In the first 4 years, 2 law enforcement officers only affirmed 1 rumor each. But now, we have an excellent regular law enforcement source close to the investigation giving us regular updates. The best law enforcement source we've ever had. Bottom line is the quality of our sources has increased dramatically over time. Consequently, the accuracy of our statements should go up a lot too. Our error rate at the moment is probably under 50% and possibly lower, even much lower. Qualifications of claims. You will see below where we regard certain things as proven. That is because we got these statements either directly from law enforcement, official case documents, or the same conclusions reached independently by 2 different sources. For this to be false, both sources would have to make up the exact same lie, not necessarily, or from direct statements from one of the girl's guardians. Again, none of this would mean proven, because again, humans are fallible. We go over this in almost every episode. Someone doesn't have to be lying to be wrong. They could be stating what they believe to be the truth, if it isn't, even if it's not. And then also, I don't know why Robert Lindsay, is he really that clueless that he doesn't understand that police officers can intentionally lie? Both for good and nefarious reasons? Because obviously corruption is real. Are there still bootlickers out there that pretend there's no such thing as corruption within police departments? Now, with and without corruption, there could be good reasons for them lying and putting forth false information. Again, not rocket science, but yeah, it's just amazing how many people that are into true crime they don't even have these basics, and they just hallucinate that if it comes from a so-called official source, it must be true. Really, really bizarre, but let's continue here. These are the only claims that people can hold to us because with all the rest, we openly admit that the claims are unverified, so we should not be held to any of those claims. The category below, proven, is called unverified with different qualifications. Keep in mind, we are not claiming anything listed below as unverified is true, although some of it has a good chance of being true. Unverified but likely. In these cases, we have 4 to 5 separate sources, usually vaguely referred to as inside sources, testifying to the truth of something. Because of the number of people saying this rumor is true, it goes into the likely category. Unverified with some likelihood of being true is a common qualification. Most of Lee Kerr's and the search party's members' testimony has gone right into this bracket because, unfortunately, while we think we are right, we cannot regard their testimony as probative. Unverified. Some claims are listed as unverified. These are simply unverified rumors. Unverified and probably not true. These claims are quite dubious, and we don't suggest anyone put any weight on them. The usefulness of most Delphi Murders podcasters and Reddit groups. Few of the illustrious Delphi Murders YouTubers has touched the real truth about this case as laid out on this website, probably because they are all narcissists who hate each other and hate anyone stealing their thunder. Wow, do we have a little bit of psychological projection going on here, Mr. Lindsay? However, Mind Truth has done a number of episodes on our information, and I thank Bruce for that very much. Mind Truth, it's called Mindshock. Remember how all these YouTubers trashed Lee Kerr? That's because he was competition, see? These guys are mostly narcissists and they don't believe in cooperation. It's all about the zero-sum game. One person wins and everyone else loses. I like some of these guys. John Kelly has some good information. Indiana Cold Cases is similar, and so is True Crime Jesus. Most of the rest are not bad people, but they are showboats, loudmouths, and boasters with egos the size of small planets. Every podcast is all about them. Obviously, this is the only type of personality that's capable of podcasting, an egomaniac. On the other hand, their personality pathology limits the usefulness of their shows. You know, that's actually a pretty good observation of the majority of podcasts, obviously not all of them. I tune into their broadcasts, and most of it is these narcissists collecting narcissistic supply, which is being doled out by their worshipful audience. Furthermore, almost nothing of consequence is being said, and it reminds you of a night with your friends drinking and no one says anything of importance for hours. Most of these podcasts are silly speculation or talk about POIs who are all ruled out. Well, what does he mean by ruled out? Again, many, many cases where originally ruled out individuals turned out to be the perpetrator. This is endless silly speculation in the comments about Bridge Guy. I think Bridge Guy was a teenager. What if Bridge Guy escaped on a hand glider? What if Bridge Guy is dead? Well, I mean, Bridge Guy could be dead. I mean, a lot of criminals involved in criminal activity end up dead. What if Bridge Guy escaped to a deserted island where he now renamed himself Lord Jim and is now King of the Savages? What if Bridge Guy is really a woman in drag? What if Bridge Guy is a mafia hitman? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I'd actually be kind of curious to see what kind of logical support some of these podcasters have if these theories are actually real, because, I mean, where do you pull that out of? I'm sure it's very interesting to posit your wandering speculation about what if this, or maybe something, or possibly why, who, or what, but at the end of the day, it's writing words in the air with water vapor to be blown away with the next wind. Idle speculation at its finest. Apparently, there's a human need to wonder, guess, and posit. Otherwise, why do we have religions? Why do kids play make-believe? Wow, we could do 5 hours on that and the non-correlation. But anyway, let's continue this. I guess this need continues into adulthood, but I like a little meat on my bone. The Reddit sites are pretty useless too, mostly because most posters regard the best sources on this crime as false. They've been doing this from the very start, so this is nothing new. These are mostly hate sites. Little if any good info comes out of these places. Subreddit Libby and Abby is awful, but it's a lot better than Delphi murders, and there are some good posters on Libby and Abby. It just happens that they happen to be in the minority, and all the best posters get downvoted to hell, and people who are dead wrong get scores of updates. I mean, that kind of upvotes, that kind of describes all of Reddit, though, so it's pretty consistent with all of Reddit, and there's a lot of great info on there, too, of course. Subreddit Delphi Murders is completely useless due to their no rumors or speculation rules, which means you can only discuss what is proven about the case, which after 4 years is just about nothing. Subreddit Libby and Abby does allow rumors and speculation, so at least they do get some good posts and posters, while the overall mood is still a downer. I mean, how could the mood not be a downer when discussing such tragedy? However, there are some good posters, especially on Libby and Abby. In particular, user Tobor is excellent. The scope of this investigation in terms of who the police think did it and how it unfolded has been dramatically narrowed. We have the basic outlines of the crime sketched, and we've even filled in a lot of the blanks. Finally, after 4 years, acquisition of good law enforcement sources. It turns out that we have acquired a sleuth who is a former detective. He's bored and has nothing to do, so we recruited him to sleuth for us. He is happy to do so. He has connections with current law enforcement officers. We sent him off to dig into Mr. X. He went away for a bit, came back a while later with proof from law enforcement that some of the things we have been reporting as rumors here are absolute fact. This source close to the retired detective will be referred to as a law enforcement source close to the investigation. Mr. X is innocent until proven guilty. I am not revealing the name of the main suspect here, and I will only refer to him as Mr. X. I also request all commenters to refer to him as Mr. X. I do this simply as a measure to protect his identity. I do not feel comfortable using his initials or certainly his name. I do not want to see this man or his family harassed in any way. No one knows if he did this crime or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Yep, this man is the prime suspect at the moment, but that doesn't mean a whole lot. Twice in the Evansdale murders, law enforcement thought they were certain they had the right man. Twice they were wrong. Does anybody know what he's referring to? So there were two different guys. They thought it was the guy. And how do we know they were wrong both times? They have thought that they had the right guy several times in the Zodiac case, but all of the suspects fell through. Or did they? Again, a lot of suspects early on turn out to be the guy. Mr. X is not even a person of interest at this stage in the case. Person of interest is a much higher standard than unnamed suspect, and he hasn't even risen to that level yet. But no one knows if Mr. X is guilty or not. I happen to think he probably did it, but what do I know? Law enforcement doesn't have much in the way of good solid evidence against Mr. X. They have enough suggestive evidence to make them think he did it. But if you look at the nature of their actual evidence, it's awfully thin. In fact, the rumor is that law enforcement simply does not have enough evidence against Mr. X to take the case to court. DAs require a very high standard of evidence to bring a homicide charge against someone. If the DA does not think he has enough evidence in a homicide case to win in court, they won't take it to trial. At this point, they don't even have enough for an arrest. Say, for instance, law enforcement arrested Mr. X and charged him with the double homicides of these two girls. If they tried to take it to court, I'm almost certain that the judge would throw it out before it even got to the trial stage. The judge would say, don't you even have enough evidence against this man to take it to court, and throw it out of court? That's very embarrassing. Furthermore, homicide is the most serious thing you can charge anyone with. The judicial system likes to make sure they got it right, if only to protect the due process rights of the accused. There are cases like this all over the country. Alright, he gets kind of sidetracked here. Okay. If Mr. X were on trial for these murders today and I were in the jury, I would vote to acquit him. Yes, I think Mr. X did this crime, but my opinion isn't worth anything. And if Mr. X was being tried today and I was on the jury, I would certainly vote to acquit. Because it doesn't matter whether I think he's guilty or not, the state has to prove it. Okay. Then he goes into all these POI that it's supposedly time to give up. He doesn't think any of these are related. But let's go through them again to see if there is enough to dismiss them. Because even after the arrest of Richard Allen, Doug Carter clearly states we haven't ruled out anyone. Anyone. So does everybody here know what the word anyone means? Does everybody know what the words haven't ruled out anyone mean? Is everybody following all those words, just to be clear? So apparently they haven't even, so that means he hasn't been ruled out. Doug Carter has not been ruled out according to Doug Carter. Neither have any of law enforcement. According to Doug Carter, they haven't ruled out anyone. And even if they did rule out people, that doesn't mean they ruled them out correctly. Again, the cult of authority worship is strong, but here on Mindshock we only engage in logic and reason and not hallucination and blind faith. So, let's go through the list here on Lindsay's blog. Time to give up on all these POIs. This is getting ridiculous. No one has to believe me when I say law enforcement is the main suspect, but there are a number of other suspects that ought to be put to rest. And again, I don't know if Lindsay's just doesn't understand that there could be more than one perpetrator, but let's go through this. Ron Logan, enough already, give it a rest. Damn it, how many times has he been cleared? 242, question mark? According to Doug Carter, no one's been cleared. Maybe we need to clear him a 243rd time then just to make sure. However, an interesting theory is that Bridge Guy may have attempted to frame Ron Logan with this crime for obscure reasons. Bridge Guy was dressed in clothes similar to what Ron wore, and he took the girls to Ron's land and killed them there. That's a good point. Mike Patty, just stop. Okay, he's innocent. Leave this poor man alone, for God's sake. Hasn't he suffered enough? No, he didn't kill his own granddaughter. Come on, people. I mean, I'm not sure what Lindsay's getting at. I mean, anyone that's not new to true crime knows that children are overwhelmingly killed by their own family. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Obviously, that doesn't mean that's what happened here. But in general, across the board in true crime cases, it's kind of like a woman who is met with foul play. Odds are, I mean, obviously every case is individual and you have to follow the evidence objectively and logically. But just the odds are that she was killed by her significant other, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, ex-husband, husband, or someone who knew her, not a stranger. Stranger murder is quite rare when it comes to lone females. Although obviously it does happen and you need to objectively and logically follow the evidence. Similarly, children are usually killed by family members. Not rocket science. But I guess Robert Lindsay just hasn't studied any other cases. I mean, I'm not sure. Obviously, that doesn't mean Mike Patty did anything. This is Mindshock. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. Anybody who wasn't there at the time of the crime is simply hallucinating when they pretend to know anything for sure. Becky Patty, obviously they're not accusing her of the homicides. The accusation is that she knows something or knows way too much and is covering for someone, presumably the killer. I doubt it. No one's been hurt by this case more than Becky Patty. Well, again, even if no one has been hurt more than Becky Patty, that doesn't mean she doesn't know something. Even if the something she knows isn't that she thinks someone is the killer and knowingly covering for them, that doesn't mean that she's covering for someone who she believes is completely innocent, which is why she would be covering for them. Again, not rocket science, but for whatever reason, Lindsay's having trouble. It's as if she took the grief of a whole town under her breast and pledged to suffer for them all. Jesus-like, not quite sainthood, but getting there. I heard that in the 2019 conference, she burst into tears. Of course she did. She still hasn't been able to process this, assuming such a thing can never be processed. She has channeled her pain into grief and sadness. Others close to the victims, who I will not name, have channeled their grief into rage and lashing out at everyone around them. It's an understandable reaction, but they're not pleasant to be around. This person is externalizing their pain into rage and projecting it outwards towards the world. I won't reveal who I'm talking about here, although it should be obvious. I will say that Libby's birth mother has also dealt with her loss by turning rageful. Both of these people were probably ragers before, so it's, I mean, look at all the assumptions here. So it's not like they did a U-turn. Of course, we empathize with their losses, but sympathy wears thin when someone is screaming in your face. Let's hope they find some peace. I mean, I would hope that sympathy wouldn't wear thin to people who have been through something like this. I mean, wow, Lindsay, wow. The last person on earth to protect the killer is poor Becky Patty. God bless her mortal soul. Again, if she doesn't have to be knowingly protecting the killer. Derek German, Libby's father, meth dealer, convict who served time in a prison and supposedly ratted people out to get a lower sentence. He has dealt with his grief with silence and hiding himself away. I don't know this man very well, but he wasn't in on this crime. And how would Lindsay know? So weird. I mean, the hallucinations. Kelsey German, sister of Libby. Kelsey's DNA was the only DNA found on the bodies. Kelsey has been investigated quite a bit, and she has been interviewed a few times by the FBI, including a couple times at her school. For whatever reason, she confuses facts all the time and can't keep her story straight. I have no idea why she's doing this, but it's not because she killed her own sister. Kelsey German has been cleared. Again, according to Doug Carter, no one has been cleared. Again, that doesn't mean she did anything, but she might also know something. She might know something she doesn't know she knows. Or she might feel guilty about something that's maybe not related, but she thinks it's related. Who knows? Again, so many different variables. When you're not hallucinating and simply following logic, it's a lot clearer to investigate. Flannel shirt guy probably shouldn't use his real name, but he's on everybody's suspect list. He was one of the original witnesses who saw Bridge Guy and gave a description. Now he says he never saw Bridge Guy at all. I guess he can't make up his mind. He's also thoroughly lawyered up and he's not saying a word. I get it. He's a greedy businessman with dollar signs and fluttering eyes that sound like clanging cash registers every time he blinks. His favorite color is green, like the woods, like the loot. Hey, it's a capitalist country, right? The theory is that he was in on the murders for mercenary reasons, such as a malign desire to purchase Ron Logan's land. Sure, he's a greedy businessman, but I doubt if he's that greedy. Because Lindsay's definitely the sole arbiter of truth when it comes to judging greed. Flannel shirt guy, along with others present at the bridge, have been investigated as possible lookouts for Bridge Guy. Not because there's any evidence that they were lookouts, but more because everyone in that situation at the time of the murders is being looked at that way. I'd be surprised if he were in on this, but stranger things have happened. I mean, that's the first logical thought he's stated. Stranger things have indeed happened. And lookouts would make sense, but again, we can't discard the thermal imaging drum. Paul Etter, a 55-year-old man of many interests. One of his many interesting hobbies was abducting and raping young women. But alas, he raped one last too many, and the law closed in and holed him up in his home, which now resembled Dodge City. He saved society a lot of money by eating a bullet, freeing up some fresh air, and making the world the tiniest bit of a better place. He raped women, not young teenage girls. He was the right age, but he doesn't look like Bridge Guy. Law enforcement already looked into him quite a bit, and I assume he's cleared. And you know what they say about assumptions? And once again, according to Doug Carter, no one's been cleared even after the arrest of Richard Allen. CM, not going to bother to reveal his name, professor at a local university known for the geocaching theory. Some connection with Libby via geocaching. I was never aware that anyone had any good evidence against this harmless-looking fella. Lawyered up, not talking, he's afraid he's going to be framed with the murders, a reasonable fear. A lot of so-called harmless-looking people end up being killers. I mean, a lot of the most notorious serial killers are harmless-looking middle-aged men. CN. Middle-aged man, resident of Delphi. Well, he's the right age anyway. Never knew what the case was against this man other than he had property near the bridge, and he and his wife's alibi being out of state traveling got a bit mangled. We all stumble over our words sometimes. He's a local executive of a government function, or perhaps better yet, a nonprofit of some sort, possibly works with kids. I've looked this man over and I can't think of anyone less likely to commit the crime. His wife has taken to social media lately, pleading with people to stop harassing them and insisting he had nothing to do with the crime. Good advice. How about taking it to heat, everyone? Well, again, Doug Carter said no one's been cleared. Not this guy, not anybody. Garrett Kurtz, local man, all-around run-of-the-mill bad person. He killed a woman, so he's a murderer. He's in prison where he belongs. I never knew what evidence anyone had against this guy except he kills chicks, so that means he killed these girls because they're chicks too. Doesn't sound like a logical progression to me. Empiricism is a thing. Besides, he's the wrong age, 27 to 28. Bridge Guy's a 50-year-old man. Give it a rest, everyone. Yeah, I mean, again, Lindsay obviously hasn't researched that. I mean, he grew up riding on horses on Ron Logan's land. Knew the area quite well. And, of course, his girlfriend, Ashley Garth, with the motive, supposedly Derek German turned in some people, got her kids taken away, all these things. So the motive is there, so that's, clearly it's more than he kills chicks, like Lindsay is asserting here. Not very bright on Lindsay's part. Okay, BH. BH's son was Abby's boyfriend. BH was a suspect for a while, and one of the detectives working on the case even stated off the record that he thought BH did it. BH has an alibi that he was working out at a gym at the time. In general, the less said about the other aspects of his life, the better, and they have no relationship to this case anyway. I mean, how would Lindsay know? Again, he's hallucinating to know. The point is that BH had nothing to do with this crime, and although he's no saint, I don't think he has it in him to commit a crime like this. I mean, how would Lindsay know? We wrote an article a while back pointing out why we felt BH was innocent, and that set off a spate of hate mail and threats from him and his son, which we found odd. You write an article saying some guy's not involved, and you get swamped with threats to track and hunt you down. I don't get it. I mean, that is a curiosity, isn't it? That is curious. I mean, what does everybody make of that? That's bizarre. So Lindsay had an argument that he and his son are innocent, and then he and his son sent them a spate of hate mail. I really don't know what to make of that. Have we seen that before? What is going on here? And then he goes on to talk about all these other things, allegedly teddy bears at the crime scene, etc. So let's go more into BH here. So this was posted in the Libyan Abbey subreddit by Calamite 1 year ago. List of correlations to BH in the family. He makes weird posts around the time of the murders and thereafter. His eldest son was around where their best friend, in quotations, accidentally shot himself in the head with 0 charges made. I've also been told about a house fire. I mean, has anyone really tried to track down all the arsons and see if there's a connection to the Flora fire? Okay, continuing on here. A video on his Instagram shows him saying guys normally, and then I kicked his ass in a grunt voice. He's drawn dead, nude people hanging from tree a year after the murders. Was that on the anniversary exactly or not? No specification here. His ex and mother to his sons works for Indiana Packers and invited him to work there. The ISP responded to a bomb threat where they left with boots. So how directly related, is that true about the bomb threat? I hadn't heard that before. So law enforcement didn't simply randomly go to the Packers to get boots in relation to the Delphi murders. There was some kind of bomb threat, or was the bomb threat also in relation to the murders here? What is going on at the Indiana Packers plant? So he matches OBG, assuming that means original Bridge Guy sketch. Bridge Guy had a scarf and a beard. BH wears scarves in that fashion frequently. Produces his own leather pouches and knives. Both sons look like young Bridge Guy. He's very scary and threatening. Members of the Freemasons. His son was made a month after Delphi. So you know what's kind of weird, though? I mean, did I talk about this in relation to Delphi? In the past true crime cases, gang and cult initiations often include murdering people. Is that what happened here? And we'll get into more Sons of Odin's connections in a moment. But continuing with this post here, never claimed innocence but said his story checks out. Made a Snapchat ending in 213, which happens to be February 13th. Said he was full of adrenaline and testosterone February 14th, 2017 at 2 a.m. So this guy's randomly saying that? Wow, okay, interesting. Same hats, height, build, beard style. Checked into the gym 3 times on the 13th via Facebook and also claimed to do a full day's work. So when it says checked in here, is that basically just claiming he's there on Facebook? Or was it GPS confirmed on his phone? And is it confirmed that he had his phone on him? He's also the father of Abby's boyfriend, allegedly. He got a new vehicle March 2017. Openly supports a neo-German god that accepts sacrifices. Abby's boyfriend laughed off and downplayed the murders and Bridge Guy getting caught. He downplayed that Bridge Guy would ever get caught. That's a little weird. Made a fake Facebook called Steve Rogers, only in use in 2017. Him and his family have ties to the military and the police. He is religious. Said on February 17th He has to take his son to Delphi. Quote, this should be fun, end quote. Another quote, had to. His girlfriend was one of the girls. I sure didn't do it because I wanted to, end quote. What? Those are weird posts. Writes in a runic alphabet and supports gods that accept a sacrifice. Moved to Logansport after Delphi. Twisted his ankle on January 30th to the point it was purple. Hit the gym 3 times on February 13th and did a full day's work, supposedly, yet was full of adrenaline and testosterone February 14th at 2 a.m. He's a beast or a liar or both. Is a very sinister, scary, and threatening man overall. If I've missed anything, I'll edit. Feel free to add any more correlations. In my opinion, there's too much pointing in his direction. So, okay. If his son really was Abby's boyfriend or similar, some guy she was interested in some capacity, statistically, that would have to put him on the radar. Now, how much of a coincidence is if his father just happens to be staying with Ron Logan, on whose property the bodies were found? Does anybody find that strange if that's true? Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. We're just examining all possibilities here on Mindshock in a logical fashion. If it's true, does that make the coincidence stack too high? So BH was arrested August 2nd, 2015, charged with 2 felony domestic assault charges, and a no-contact order was issued. Also in 1995, he was charged with battery resulting in bodily injury. Some posters are stating here, if you look at his posts, you can tell he hates women. These are posts about the need for more masculinity. Other posters stated that's hardly unusual in the U.S., sadly. Supposedly, one of the sons, so he was an ex-cop, then joined the Marines, but at the time, supposedly, he also worked, he was the funeral director and mortician at the time of the murders, which is kind of weird, I guess. People are stating that his specialty in the Marines was the retrieval and care of corpses. Is this the guy who wasn't Abby's boyfriend? His eldest. So supposedly both of the sons look like the young bridge guy sketch. One of the... Yeah, he couldn't have been... Wait. I'm assuming they're talking about the older son here. So the older son was the mortician, specializing in the retrieval and care of corpses. Ex-cop, Marine, etc. That's the older son. The youngest son, allegedly, was Abby's boyfriend. The father, allegedly, Ron Logan's house guest. Anybody find this weird? Anybody find this weird at all? And then, of course, there's the issue with the best friend being accidentally shot in the head with 0 charges filed. So the autopsy supposedly ruled the death as a self-inflicted accidental gunshot wound. Some people allege they were playing Russian roulette. Although that's a convenient cover if he was killed by somebody else, right? I mean, if you're going to kill somebody, then you could just say, oh yeah, we were all just playing Russian roulette. That's kind of weird. Familiar ad posted this. This person is very suspicious to me also regarding BH. Some other things I noticed are that his Facebook likes show an interest in redheads. He had a photo of guns and bloody knives that seem to have been taken down, or I just can't find them anymore. His obsession with those specific hats and straight razors stand out. I also believe that although his son was Abby's boyfriend, that it is still likely that she never met him and wouldn't recognize him. At that age, I wouldn't be surprised if she never met her secret boyfriend's dad. But BH could have easily seen photos of her from his son and maybe would have access to his son's social media where he could have communicated with her acting as if he were his son. Did she upset his son? Did he become obsessed with her? Did she say she was pregnant? This is all speculation, but it just seems odd for someone with this close of a connection to the girls not to be thoroughly looked into. And if he was, then I don't understand why law enforcement doesn't say these people are cleared. Well, not only that, they say specifically nobody's been cleared. Edit. His Facebook account has been heavily cleaned up and edited since the first time I looked at it about a month ago. This is already a year ago. He took down so many creepy selfies and photos, violent posts, and even edited captions on posts. Looking at his Facebook now is not nearly as suspicious as it was a month ago, but that alone is suspicious. Calamity posted, he made a post about not paying child support that was removed in 2017, although no one's definitively said anyone was pregnant. Nothing makes him look innocent. If true that law enforcement was looking for gutting knives purchased around the time at local hardware stores, he has plenty of pics of gutting knives and unusual weaponry displayed on his public Pinterest profile. Not confirmed that law enforcement was asking around about it. Here's an interesting post from Familiar Ad responding to people saying that that's all very common regarding knives, redheads, and all this crazy stuff. Not claiming to solve the case, just responding to a post that asked about correlations with this specific person. I am from a small town of Hicks, and I've never seen any that post bloody knives and guns laying across a table and talk about sacrifice. A bloody deer and actually shooting guns or hunting pictures? Yes. This guy might not be a murderer, but he's definitely not your everyday hick. I mean, there are all different types of hicks out there. Another poster posted this. Another thing, BH is connected to GE, TJF, and others in the Kokomo crew through his involvement in the Sons of Odin group. Another post here, if he's a Freemason, then forget it. One of their oaths is to protect thy brother, meaning they cover for them no matter what. Even for murder. And since the vast majority of law enforcement in Delphi are likely Freemasons, this applies here. Here's a post by user since deleted. 213 is because he used to go to a Freemason lodge in Georgia called the Ogeechee Masonic Lodge 213 F&M. Maybe that's why he picked that particular day, if he is indeed Bridge Guy. I think you may be onto something here, but there's a lot of weirdos and creepers all over Indiana and nearby states, so it's not good to put all your eggs in one basket. I've been observing this case since the beginning, and someone is lying for a loved one and has given them an alibi and probably has not given over DNA because they're not considered POIs or suspects. The killer has probably accused other people of being the murderer in general conversation and likes that other people are being looked into other than him. So GE, I'm assuming, is Gabe Ellis, who was examined at the beginning. I think I went over him in the first, maybe even the first episode, definitely the first couple of episodes. But here's another post 11 months ago on the Libyan Abbey subreddit by Meow Zedong. Get to know your local terrorists, Vinlanders, and Odinism. In Knightstown, Indiana, there's one known as BJ. BJ is one of the founding members of violent, racist, skinhead terrorist network known as the Vinlanders Social Club, an Indiana-based group known for extreme violence and racially motivated random acts of terror. BJ, who has openly boasted that his Joint Terrorism Task Force file is a mile long, has asserted himself as a leader in a number of hate groups in the region. He routinely has been a leader at the forefront of skinhead groups and radicalized alt-right movements since the early 2000s into the modern day. He co-founded the extreme right-wing group American Guard and led the Indiana chapter of the Proud Boys and the Indiana Soldiers of Odin. His endeavors are often referred to as the shock troops of the modern white supremacist movement, whose raison d'etre is to promote hate violence and enact it. The group's activities are overwhelmingly racially based and misogynistic. BJ, a longtime Indiana Hoosier and white supremacist, was one of the founders of the Vinlanders Social Club, a hardcore racist skinhead gang that has a high association with violence. Members or associates of the VSC have been responsible for at least 9 murders officially, as well as many other crimes. BJ also founded the Indiana Soldiers of Odin, who later converted it into the American Guard. Wotanism is a term sometimes given to a more racist form of the Norse pagan religion known as Asatru. Asatru is a religious sect that attempts to revive the ancient Norse religious beliefs and practices of pre-Christian Europe. Asatru is not in itself a racist religion, although some white supremacists consider themselves Asatruists. It is more frequently referred to as Odinism. The warrior religion first became popular in U.S. prisons. This ideology has since been spread globally, exclusive to members of European descent. the tribes eagerly anticipating an impending race war. The soldiers of Odin conduct vigilante patrols to protect citizens from the ostensible depredations of refugees. The Indiana Soldiers of Odin conducted several such patrols in 2016. He just goes over a bunch of other people, but in general, we have this gang possibly connected to meth, and there's another interesting post here. Sons of Odin were also associated with the Derek German-related meth ring local to Delphi. Do you think it's a huge coincidence their initiations took place the very same day at the Monon High Bridge trails as the Delphi ritual-style murders? That's just too much of a coincidence for me, personally. Thanks, original poster, for this post. Lots of thinking. Wait a second. Oh, okay. I remember this. So, there's a woman who called police. It's been all over the Delphi Facebook groups and early on talk in Delphi. She's the mother of a girl gang raped on the Monon High Bridge Trail initiation that day who joined the Sons of Odin. The mom went to police when they picked her up that day, and pics were taken of the white Dart sedan out of fear of what would happen to her daughter that day. TF and other Derek German associates and meth ringers were said by the mom and daughter to be in this group of 5 men, and they were lining the trunk with garbage bags outside of her home while waiting on the daughter. Mom took pics and supposedly called the cops, and T.I. himself immediately that morning of February 13th, out of her fear for her daughter as well as her daughter was a user, the daughter was sold out during the initiation to a Son of Odin out to Ohio per her mother. So this is insane because whatever happened to that, and I'm not sure. So I went over this in the early episodes. I do not remember the Sons of Odin connection. So are people alleging that this initiation, assault, rape ceremony, whatever this is, are they asserting it did not take place? And is it awfully coincidental it's taking place at the same day? Where exactly did it take place? In what woods? And why did the police do nothing? See, some people are alleging the police are also complicit, and there's overlap with the Freemasons, Sons of Odin, and all of this corruption. Another post here. I literally said this before a few times. The murders were a calculated hit for whatever reason, either a gang or a cartel. Could be many reasons 2 teens ended up murdered. Anything from rivalry to a dispute amongst members. A cross or a double cross. There was a lot of talk about Derek German possibly being an informant. I think it was why that FBI agent happened to be in Delphi when the girls went missing. That's too coincidental. I also think Derek German is in some big trouble, which is why we don't see him literally at all. They brutally murdered his kid. They weren't just sending a message, they were at war. But my very first theory was that it was a hitman. The serial killer theory never sat well with me because of the timeline. A serial killer wouldn't have rushed. I'd imagine they'd want to take their time and revel in it. Instead, this guy comes prepared with a murder kit and literally kills the girls and stages the scene in about an hour's time, and then he was gone. He was there to do a job, and that was the very first impression I got from these murders after researching the case. You know what's also weird? That at the beginning, law enforcement did state that the public wasn't in any danger. Which, how could they have known that if the FBI told them that it was a hit? If they somehow knew for sure this related to, let's say, Derek German and Sons of Odin, they maybe could be comfortable stating that they wouldn't be going door to door randomly killing people, but who knows? Yeah, this is a crazy theory. Is it real? What's crazier, though? A random serial killer or a known gang known for assault and murder and possibly meth involvement? Is it just too coincidental that Derek German turned in people that it might have been connected to this meth ring? Is that too coincidental? I mean, how many murdered kids have this situation going on? And that even Evansdale, if there's connections to meth and possibly even Sons of Odin or any of these intersecting criminal rings. And so, okay, hold on a second. Let's say you're a relatively smart criminal. Would you outsource such a job to known pagan or religious nut jobs that are gonna, or satanic nut jobs that are gonna stage a scene in a particular way, drawing suspicion away from the true cause, and maybe possibly make it look like a random serial killer that was into Satanism. So, I mean, see, this is the thing a lot of coincidence theorists don't think about. If you're a smart criminal, like, how are you going to cover up your crime? Would it really be a smart move to use an organization or a group of individuals to stage all this satanic occult stuff? Maybe they believe in it themselves, maybe they don't. But it's like a cover so you don't get to the true string puller. What does everybody think about that? Another post here. I know of at least one person who was interrogated by law enforcement for the Delphi murders, who is part of one of these Odin-related groups in the region of Indiana. Thanks for sharing more info about them. I thought it was more of a Viking LARP type thing for neckbeards and fedora enthusiasts, but clearly I was wrong. A response here. For some it is. There are many different types of these groups. Some are just curious dabblers. Some are plain as day straight up criminals and murderers. Another poster said that February 13th is some kind of satanic holiday, red rum murder sacrifice day. I don't know. Here's a post from 3 years ago by Sad Obligation. Ron Logan's guests question mark. I have a question about whether or not Ron Logan had guests at his house the weekend before the murders. I don't know if anyone here can answer. I heard many months ago that BH and his son had visited Logan on occasion. Anyone know if they even knew each other? Question mark. Also, are the stories about the pig roasts, was the pig roast a cover story for some kind of satanic sacrifice party or other initiation or Odin related activity? Because people say you're not going to have a pig roast in February. Well, some people chimed in that they do, but in general, you probably wouldn't. So was that just a cover story and that's not really what it was? Chickpea posted, I heard this rumor too, that BH was at Ron's that weekend along with some S family members. It appears they are all acquainted. If their teenage sons were with them, it makes sense that the girls would want to go out to the trails that day, especially since Abby's boyfriend was one of the sons. Okay, hold on a second. Hold on a second. Would that be a reason why they would lie and want to go to the trails for this party with teen boys that happened to be at Ron Logan's? And were there also Sons of Odin's members there that took advantage of the situation? Or is it possible, and this is one of the darkest theories ever, is it possible that these Sons of Odin guys were either put up to this by someone else or acted of their own volition related to Derek German's snitching on some meth ring that's connected with the Sons of Odin? Did they utilize BH's son, Abby's secret boyfriend, allegedly, if that's true, with or without his knowledge? Because, I mean, I don't know. If the son knew what his father was into and capable of murder and all these things, perhaps he might have felt he didn't have a choice if he believed his father would kill him too. But whatever. Possibly the father might have framed it innocently, so the son had no idea what he was setting up his secret girlfriend for, if indeed there was an invite to this party. I mean, this is obviously the darkest theory ever, but it kind of explains all these overlapping circles, does it not? But that's what we're going to close with. I mean, there just seems to be a lot of intersecting criminals here. The Kokomo crew with Gabe Ellis and all these other criminals that seem to know each other. Is there overlap with Keegan Kline and his father, Tony Kline, and James Brian Chadwell as well? So are there overlaps with all of these criminals that may or may not know each other? I mean, it's not really that uncommon that people in the same industry know each other regardless of the industry. If the industry here is crime and meth rings and possibly snuff film rings, is it really that outlandish? I don't know, but obviously the truth is not afraid of investigation. Hope everybody found another edition of Mindshock True Crime interesting and informative. Hopefully we can ensure that true justice is served whether or not Richard Allen is guilty or innocent, and if he's guilty, whether or not he acted alone. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like and share, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons, you get priority for case topic, logic analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.